And welcome to Sci-Fi Guy. This is Will. This is your Sci-Fi Will, your Star Trek Will today, because we're going to be talking about Voyager, Star Trek Voyager, and Captain Kathryn Janeway. That's right. The leader, the commanding officer of USS Voyager, and how, in my opinion, right? IMHO, in my humble opinion, Captain Janeway fucks up right at the pilot. She screws up. She demonstrates bad leadership. So before I play my supporting clip, before I play the moment where I feel that Captain Janeway did not demonstrate good, solid leadership for her crew to emulate, I will say that this is not a royal fuck up. It certainly isn't in regards to the pilot itself, to this episode, Caretaker, first episode of Voyager. That's how the crew gets lost in the Delta Quadrant far from home, that she's doing something that completely upends the mission. But in terms of future missions and protocols, I think it's a very bad example to set. So since there's no video, this is Captain Janeway speaking to Ensign Kim and, at this point, observer Tom Paris. He's not part of the crew. He will be recruited, but now he's just Starfleet observer Tom Paris. And so here's the clip.
We're getting ready to leave. Let me show you to the bridge. Did you have any problems getting here, Mr. Paris?
None at all, Captain.
My first officer, Lieutenant Commander Cabot, Ensign Kim, Mr. Paris.
Welcome aboard.
Ensign Kim, this is your station.
All right, so you said, well, what happened, Will? Well, she introduces Ensign Kim, her actual, I believe he's ops. I think he's ops, right? Ops officer, her new ops officer, and Starfleet observer, Tom Paris. She introduces both of these men, key crew members on this very important mission, to her first officer. The first officer shakes Ensign Kim's hand, welcome aboard, and then when he goes to Tom Paris, because of their history together, right? Because of their bad baggage, which I'm sure Janeway is aware of. She has to be. He does shake Tom Paris's hand. That's in the video, if you were watching it. And Tom looks all, chagrined and disgruntled and this guy, but he doesn't say welcome aboard. Now you say, oh, well, poo hoo, boo hoo hoo, boo hoo hoo for Tom Paris, right? But to me, and I sort of flash back to every job I've held, every time I was introduced as a new crew member, as a new employee, as a new team member. Every office, every job site, if you're blue collar, white collar, what have you, you're a team member, right? You're the new team player. Hopefully you are. Hopefully you're going to take one for the team and you're going to do your best for that team. So then, instead of, or I should, let's recap. So she introduces both men to the first officer. He shakes Ensign Kim's hand, welcomes him aboard warmly. To Tom Paris, he just shakes the hand, and in the video, the body language is really bad. It's like, get the hell off my bridge, you scumbag. Get out of here, you dick. And, it's quite sort of appropriate or understandable because these men have this emotionally, tinged history and backstory together. But what's not understandable, and this is why I'm showcasing and highlighting Captain Janeway's, I feel, bad leadership, or at least irresponsible, at least not a model of commanding behavior. Now, you could go to Captain Kirk, Jean-Luc Picard. You could go to Captain Jellicoe or Cisco, what have you, Captain Archer. You can go through all the great Starfleet captains. Even Spock held the captaincy, right? Of course, so went from first officer to captain. But in terms of a model and an example, and certainly the first day, like you figure, well, down the line, things can, get worse, could get better. Now, certainly, as we know, good Star Trek Voyager fans, scholars that we are, we know that Tom Paris was only supposed to be a temporary employee or crew member. He was supposed to be an observer in that capacity. And even right before it, when she's recruiting him from the penal colony, I believe in New Zealand, she's like, that's it. You'll do one mission and then we'll cut you off and cut you loose. And he's like, story of my life. So he's expecting maybe a couple days, a week, what have you. Maybe they'll be lucky and it'll be only a day or so to get the Maquis in the Badlands. But from what I'm looking at, and again, I've held many short-term jobs, contractor jobs, temp jobs, what have you, gig, the gig economy, gig jobs. So you have a gig, you have 2-3 days a week, whatever. But in all those instances, and okay, granted, I was never in the military, even though Star Trek is more quasi-military. In all those temp jobs, be it 2-3 days a week, I was always warmly welcomed aboard by the main supervisor, HR, the boss, whomever. And I was always warmly greeted. My hand was shooken and shaken. And everyone was like, glad you're on the team. Will, glad you've come and joined us. And if I had an instance where even a supervisor or certainly a coworker, a colleague, a sort of equal, he shakes his hand, but he looks at him as looks could kill, and he doesn't say anything. Not welcome aboard. How are you? Even, a more mature professional would say, we have a history, but I'm looking forward to working with you. Glad you've joined us. Glad that you're on the team. So I think for me, the biggest sort of transgression, as it were, the biggest sort of, faux pas, bad leadership, because Janeway has always proven herself to be a good leader. Let me really emphasize that as well. I'm not saying she's a bad captain at all. In this instance, however, in this mission outset, and it's an important one, and again, we know what happens. The caretaker zooms them into the Delta Quadrant, and it takes 7 years or so to get back. That she is setting a tone here that could be, dicey, that could be counterproductive, that is sort of unprofessional, and I think bad leadership at this one instance. Now, again, there's always a counter argument, of course. Oh, she's letting two men deal it out themselves. Maybe, but to me, again, when I flash back and I look at my, my jobs and my own sort of work history, I was never in the military, true. This, again, to me, is setting a tone. This is an instance where a captain, where a leader, where the big boss is saying, wait a minute, you're giving him the cold shoulder. You're giving him a real stink eye, and you can't even say welcome aboard. Even if you don't mean it, and the guy probably wouldn't, of course, you have to say welcome aboard, hello, Tom Paris. Not just a half-assed, a limp, sort of dead fish handshake. That the guy wants to throw you into the transporter and beam you to deep space. Well, they don't have airlocks, I guess, in starships. They have them in Deep Space Nine. But see, so that it's bothered me. I mean, I've seen this episode many, many times, as we've all seen, many of the episodes, all the episodes, dozens of times, maybe. Certainly with Caretaker, when that was coming on back in the day, this was, the third Star Trek spinoff. It was, whoa, you had Next Generation, the first Deep Space Nine, and then you had Star Trek Voyager, Starship lost in space, and whoa, first female captain. It was, and then it was the flagship. It was the Starship that was the flagship of UPN, United Paramount Network, a new network. So it was really special. And I remember getting so, excited and watching it. And then I taped it back in the day, we had our little VHS, little cassettes, and I watched it probably 3 or 4 times at least. And then they asked me to pitch, and Voyager was my first show to pitch to. So that was another big thing for me. So then I was always taping the episodes, taking notes. And so this, episode was special for Star Trek fans and for me in particular. So to see Janeway sort of go, let them do what they want. Her thinking, of course, you could say, she's, knows this mission, maybe a couple days, a week or two. These men are not going to have to work together much longer. And so for that, there is, sort of a forgiveness, I guess, for Janeway. There is like, well, it's not going to last long, the mission. It could, though. They don't know how long it's going to last. It could last fairly long. And once again, the tone, to me, that leadership tone, that should be like, let's come together. Don't be kids. Don't be mature. Don't be brats, preschoolers. Shake his hand and welcome him aboard. So there is some cohesion and there's some respect. And that's what you need in a team. Team player, team members, crew members, what have you. Now, in a fictional sense, of course, in a drama sense, right? Dramatic license, drama. All the drama of shows like Star Trek are certainly something to factor in. You could say, wow, that was a dramatic moment. It was. Would it have been more so if she had said something to her first officer? I do believe so. She could have said, wait, are you having a bad day? What's your problem? What's going on here? And, the character, the actor could have had this whole like, well, Captain, get it together and welcome the Starfleet observer. How many, days or weeks we're going to have him and have to work with him. Welcome him aboard, be mature, get your act together. Get your skanky, rude act and ass together. So, I that's how I would have written that scene. I would have said, Captain Janeway shows leadership ability and good leadership model to get her crew together instead of just letting, whatever happened. Maybe the next time she sees these two men, they'll be brawling in the mess hall or in, the corridors or what have you. So, it might be a small moment. It certainly is in terms of time. The whole scene, the whole, encounter between these two men are fairly short, of course, but it's telling. And I just think it's a good example, not to kind of, again, keep calling Captain Kathryn Janeway out, that she's such a bad, captain or leader. No, she's not. But in that instance, I think, of course, you can make a case that she fucked up, or she certainly should have done more. And I think what's really interesting, if you dig up some interviews, I believe it was a video interview, it might have been print as well, or maybe they were taking quotes from the video interview with Kate Mulgrew. She says how she feels that, I guess, especially in the beginning, I guess when she was feeling her character as Janeway, she felt she could have done more or better. And it's really, I think, a credit to her, and to say that she wanted to do an even better job. Even though I think everyone will agree or, say that her performances were fine. But I do kind of agree with her as the show went on, and this is the same with, say, Patrick Stewart's Picard or Avery Brooks' Sisko, even maybe, William Shatner back in the day. They get more of a handle on it. They have backstory more. They have all these stories, these episodes to support and extend and enhance their performances. So, but what I'm saying is that she could have looked at this as that was sort of a screw up of Captain Janeway. Janeway is a leader, and we could maybe go back and say, hey, don't do this when you're introducing people and they don't seem like they're getting along. Step in there, intervene, and be the adult in the room, so your crew members, your subordinates, will work just a little bit more harmoniously, we hope. So there you have it. There you have it. It is one of those instances which I think could have been handled better. Still a big fan of Janeway and Voyager. And why don't you weigh in? and feedback us. Give us some comments on what you think about that scene and Janeway's lack of bringing people together, because I think that's indisputable. You could say the way she handled it, or that she handled it at all, but she's not trying to bring anyone together. She's not being a peacemaker. And maybe she has her reasons, and maybe you can tell me a good reason why she shouldn't, that there should be friction and conflict between Paris and her first officer. I want to thank you for listening. As usual, you're supporting us. We are free. We're usually, of course, always free. We have a paid tier, paid phase, $4.99. Not too shabby, and you get goodies. You get exclusives and interviews that the freebies do not, so you can consider that. Either or, subscribe if you have not. Keep on supporting, keep on feedbacking. I love hearing your messages. We all love to hear it. Go check out Caretaker once again. Watch the scene, see for yourself, and we'll see you soon.